Hello world, I'm back and today we are going to be talking about what it's like to eat at restaurants when you have ARFID. Eating at restaurants can be a struggle, a daunting task, and a source of fear for many with ARFID. My personal struggle is that I tend to only eat off the kids menu. This means restaurants without kids menus are generally out of the question unless it's like an Italian restaurant. My main restaurants are just fast food. I put out a survey to gather information from others with ARFIDs, and here are some of their struggles. The struggles that I commonly received were the embarrassment and anxiety. This included being scared of what the people you were with or waiters judging you for your choices, being scared of asking for things to be super specific, the embarrassment of eating off the kids' menu, also the fear of seeing fear foods, being close to them, the smells, and the possible cross-contamination. There is also the risk of a safe food coming out wrong. For instance, different French fries from different restaurants having different textures. There is a fear of being judged for our habits and people not understanding that the don't want to try is usually I can't try. There are a few responses that I wanted to quote directly. So here's the first one of struggles. So much. Smells that I find gross, foods moving around me, unsafe foods being moved around me, the proximity of my food to unsafe foods to mine, especially as a server handled multiple plates, cramped spaces with strangers and people I was eating with, judgment from very odd orders that I had to make to a server, and people next to me eating unsafe foods and more. Another one is too many things to worry about. Anxiety, eating in front of others, what I can eat, what if there's nothing I can eat, what if I have to eat something I literally can't eat, what if other people eat something I can't even look at, oils, grease, certain vegetables, etc. Textures of foods and smells are also problems. The other one I want to read is a little bit longer. The social aspect of embarrassment surrounding not eating normal. The questions that arise in having to answer them. The pressure to just try it. You've never had it before, so how do you know if you don't like it? And you're an adult, get over it. That's not how it works. Also, the fear of a surprise texture in my meal, or a meal coming to the table wrong and looking like you're making a big fuss if you're unhappy with something like sauce on your plate. And embarrassment and questions and uncomfortable looks from the waiter asking for something unusual, like a plain cheese quesadilla, no vegetables or guacamole or sour cream. Not being able to trust that your order will come out right and paying for a meal I can't eat. What I want to say to my fellow ARFID sufferers is that it is 100% okay to send your food back and get it made right. It is okay to ask for foods to be made differently. I work at a restaurant and I promise you, for the most part, I can't speak for every waiter, but me, myself, and everyone I work with, we do not judge. Our goal is to make the customers happy and enjoy their meals. As long as you are nice about it, don't be scared to ask for exactly what you want or sending it back to get it done right. All times I ask for my soda to not have ice and will ask for a new drink if it comes with ice. I ask for my quesadillas to be only cheese with no sour cream or the other stuff in it. I will reorder it to get it right if it comes out wrong. If they give me the wrong sauce for my chicken nuggets, I ask for the right sauce. It is okay for us to be, well, picky. The next question I had asked on the survey was, if you avoid going out to eat, personally, I know my safe restaurants, and if we are going to one of them, I have no problem. Considering most restaurants I go to have a kids menu, I'm generally fine, and always look up the menu before going to new restaurants. And I have turned down going to new places, and that's also okay to do. I have even Facebook messaged a restaurant asking if they had a kids menu because it wasn't listed online, and they sent me a picture of it. The responses I got to if you avoid going out to eat were mostly yes, I avoid going out, which 100% makes sense for us with ARFID. However, it comes with the fear of looking rude. So I want to say, it is okay to look rude for the sake of your own comfortability. Some people don't want to deal with the stress or the anxiety it brings. Some don't want to spend money on basic foods. We also tend to avoid fancy places because they decrease our chances of having a safe food there. On the other hand, a good amount of us don't avoid going out to eat because we stick to the safe places. Another response I wanted to directly quote is, I did what I was physically able, but to an extent. There were places that I physically couldn't handle going to eat, and I missed a lot of family events, social opportunities, and career opportunities because of it. There were also times where I couldn't physically handle going out to eat anywhere at all, even if it was an environment I normally could tolerate. Some days I didn't have the confidence. Others, I was too overwhelmed and anxious. Most were because I had already faced a rough day with the ARFID struggles, not being understood, respected, having them pointed out, having them ridiculed by an adult or someone my age, having them invalidated, having to handle sensory and ARFID situations in that day, etc. It cost me opportunities to be around professional networking events, social environments with my peers. Cafeterias are impossible, as are lunch and snack times. Make connections with those who could have physically helped me and cost me a lot of emotional turmoil. It's been rough. People underestimate ARFID a lot. They think we're choosing to be this way. That is not the case. As the response I just read say, there are ARFID sufferers out here losing opportunities because of this disorder. Personally, I have turned down many dates from Tinder because they wanted to go out to eat. But this extends to people's professional life. ARFID is not a joke. It is a real, serious eating disorder. The next question I asked was, what are your safe places? Are there safe places at all? For me, my favorite is Subway and Philly Connection. I can do just about any sandwich shop, and most fast food places have chicken nuggets, fries, or plain cheeseburgers for me, with ketchup and mayonnaise, of course. And the responses I got pretty much matched mine. Wherever there are chicken tenders and fries are good to go. A lot of yeses to fast food. However, there were some responses that were no. Some of us do not have a single restaurant we consider safe and are stuck eating at home. Next, I asked about what are the restaurant's safe foods. I got a ton of chicken nuggets, fries, cheese pizza, bread, and plain burgers. I also got some responses saying potatoes, grilled cheese, mac and cheese quesadillas, plain pasta, pancakes, and waffles. I also asked about eating off the kids' menu, and many said yes. However, some people said no because of the fear of being judged, and I just want to say, don't be scared. I'm 22, and I still am pretty much strictly off kids' menu. I have had adults of all ages come into the restaurant I work at and order off the kids' menu, and neither myself or others working with me bat an eye. I promise the waitstaff is not going to judge you, and if they do, they're crap people. However, that is not the case for everyone, as this response I'm about to read, where they have been judged and I have been there too, honestly, but this response was really, really well put and makes multiple great points and describes the horrors of ARFID very well. It is long, but it is necessary. If they took the time to write all this out, I can take the time to read it. I apologize for this long rant. I feel it must be said in order to do this question and project justice. I ate the same things at every restaurant since childhood, so I often had to eat off the kids' menu and the adult menu. I'm an adult. It is humiliating. My orders match at every restaurant. Water, root beer, cream soda, or Coke with no ice. My kind of person. The beverage ordered depended on what each restaurant served and if I needed hydration over caffeine or a taste. That was universal and memorable to servers to begin with. That was not an icebreaker for me, starting out ordering drinks that people thought were odd. I often asked why. There's no right answer or singular answer. I am well aware that I am under no obligation to explain my eating disorders to others, and that asking me to is in violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, which I did not know. Anyways, I never brought that up. It was shameful to start off with a server with an oddity that they might have written down, questioned me about, interrogated me about, judged me about, ignored me about, so I had no beverage that I could drink for a meal, and or looked visibly confused, puzzled, caught off guard. I was odd. They didn't usually hear that. So I was a target by servers from the start. It took years before I ever ordered for myself. And let me tell you, I was in the same situation. My parents always ordered for me. Where was I? I just whispered to my mom what I wanted and she'd order for me. Most people I know would already know what I would order, as it was usually the same. When I was too afraid, they'd order for me, sometimes with frustration, sometimes comforting me because they were aware and compassionate about how they knew I felt about it, and sometimes not saying anything and moving along. I always had difficulty finding things I could eat in public. That led to very specific orders, repetitive orders, and limited places in which I could eat. I'd plan in advance, as I've been struggling with ARFID and conflicts when trying to eat out for as long as I can remember. These struggles aren't new to me. Usually I could have a salad, but it had to be specific. I always had to ensure that each dressing would be one of my safe foods and not a creamy version of that. I had to make sure that they didn't include certain herbs in my list for salad dressings. I thrived off of salads at most places. I could eat breadsticks in some places. I could eat certain types of fries. I always tried to include a protein source into every meal, so I eventually grew to be able to have restaurant-specific cheese sauces that I could dip fries into. It took years to be able to do any of the things I can, and I have lost foods that would be easy to find at restaurants over my lifetime. ARFID is a monster. Many of my meals were deconstructed meals of what most people eat, as combining my safe foods or having them touch was always a problem for me. I couldn't eat pizza unless it had no cheese, but that meant picking apart any pre-ordered slice for anything that might be cheese and putting more sauce on. I used to do the same thing, by the way. I would take all the cheese off and all the sauce off. The cheese wasn't my problem, but the sauce was. So, So, pre-ordered slice for anything that might be cheese and putting more sauce on. Many restaurants would refuse to give me more sauce for pizza, so I essentially had cooked bread in fear that I missed cheese. Add, I've had shredded unmelted mozzarella cheese as a protein source in those situations. It was very rare to find my home safe foods in public. Even the same food prepared or plated differently at a restaurant meant that I could not eat it. So I lived off of the same meals. Most pizzas I ordered were without cheese with extra sauce and off of the kids' menu. I'd pieced together meals off of both the kids' menu and the adults' menu. Only one server ever told me that I was too old to eat off the kids' menu, so I feigned allergies. I felt awful about it, but otherwise I wouldn't have been able to eat. It's hard when people's eyes are on you as you struggle. Everyone always stared. I faced so much judgment from servers. They didn't know I had ARFID, and I couldn't try telling people when they never respected or understood it. Ever. It was a lost cause to explain. I dealt with consequences as I could. My family often would play bouncer to servers, trying to ensure that my food didn't touch theirs and that theirs weren't passed over me by servers. That didn't always work. Servers don't really think about that at all. We'd even see me in a spot where they wouldn't reach over me. That meant that someone in my family always had to and didn't want to have their back to the rest of the restaurant. I knew this. They brushed it off as no problem, but I knew how hard it was and felt horrible about it. If servers knew and practiced what is necessary for health and comfort of a diner who says they have ARFID, things might be better for those who are struggling. Those with ARFID may not have to endure regular humiliation, avoidance, and provision of growths in such a case. Servers might not criticize small meals or push additional menu options. Servers might not stand over someone with ARFID, pass food over them, or single them out. Servers might respect someone with ARFID and the order that is already in a stressful enough environment and treat that person like anyone else. I might not have missed out on a social, career, and networking opportunities and had less difficulty eating in public. It might not have worsened my social anxiety. It would have made a difference if a server understood those needs, if a server practiced accommodations for someone with ARFID, whether they understand it or not, and if the environment of going out to eat did not induce so much shame that a person with ARFID fears saying that they have it for any number of reasons. The world would be easier to navigate, lives would be less tormenting, people would feel more comfortable, and the world would feel a lot less judgmental and instead safer with the acceptance of people who have ARFID. Those with ARFID face enough. They do not want the inner challenges that ARFID possess. Adding in external challenges get in the way of the physical health, mental health, success, and happiness of those with ARFID. Servers probably should know about ARFID and be contractually obligated not to discriminate against it. However, if it is so unknown that nobody realizes that they are violating the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 in the way they treat me with my ARFID, no restaurant knows the rules and policies they should legally have in place for customers with ARFID. They don't train employees on how to handle ARFID. They don't know it exists. And they should. One lawsuit one day may change this, but who knows if it'll happen, when, if such changes would be accepted, and if such changes would be widespread. By law, they should be aware and accommodating. They are not, in my personal experience from childhood to adulthood. Servers would always ask if I wanted a takeout box. I physically could never finish a large meal due to my ARFID. I cannot eat things from restaurants if they are reheated due to my ARFID. I'm the same way as you. I feel bad about wasting foods, and it's about even having to take up a server's time and discussing any and all of my odd ARFID quirks. It's hard. Sometimes others in my house would ask for the box for themselves if they could or wanted to eat it, or if they wanted to make it easier. If I declined, one of four things would happen. The first is that servers would ask me if I was sure and respect my yes but thank you. Eye rolling judgment, laughter, concern, and more things that made me uncomfortable often then voiced, shown via body language and or shown in tone of voice and word choice. But it was nice when they actually let it go. The second is that they'd explain that I could reheat it and would otherwise waste food that we'd pay for. That was miserable to have my own fears reflected at me. I'd resume with saying no thank you, but I appreciate the thought. I'd say this with every ounce of positivity I could. That is hard to do in any restaurant as someone with ARFID. In these cases, they wouldn't take no for an answer, and they'd leave a takeout container just in case. That would be left at the table after I left. The third situation is that they'd tell me that they'd take it upon themselves to just box it up for me because I might change my mind. I had no choice but to let them do things I explicitly asked them not to do. And in the fourth scenario, they'd push back and argue with me to get a takeout container. Who argues with a child that is not theirs when their parents are right there? Servers argued with me when I was a kid, not joking. They picked on the child relentlessly until I'd give in. They often made a scene doing so. In those cases, other customers and employees would stare at me. Then I'd just comply and get a takeout container. I felt bad to waste styrofoam and plastic containers when they wouldn't back down. They're bad for the environment, which is an important topic to me. I always felt horrible in every way after every attempt to go out with takeout boxes. It's a stupid thing for servers not to accept a kind no thank you. It's just plain dehumanizing and demoralizing for an adult server to argue with, single out, and make a scene about a child or a young adult, especially when that customer is simply struggling with ARFID. Struggling with ARFID is hard enough without other humans making it worse. I often was not accepted in my food choices by servers. They'd suggest unsafe foods as I try not to get sick. I try not to get sick or cry in that process, since even hearing of unsafe food is enough to make me sick, cry, and or into a panic attack. I had to get through this in varying ways throughout childhood and adulthood, often with others having to have my back to get by. I've had to feign allergies in many such situations when I was not heard or accepted, and it tormented me. I can't say that I have ARFID and know that it will be respected without judgment and a lot of unwanted questions to a server. I'd bring up that I'm vegetarian, which brought unwelcome comments, questions if I'd ever tried fill in the blank unsafe food. Judgments toward me, and judgments toward whoever I was with who watched me try to eat out. My loved ones would have to lie to servers for me, as two people against a server is different than a child against one. They meant well in doing so and usually helped communicate to servers, but I felt horrible about it. I was often afraid to speak to servers after server confrontations for meals, days, weeks, months, and even years to come. Those incidents stick with me. Perhaps, in their actions, servers mean well. That does not make up for the fact that their actions are unwelcome and not received well. I'm afraid to do the same for me when I was too afraid to speak up. Loved ones knew my order. It was consistent. Everyone did, including servers. Servers often tried to make a game out of my odd orders, which were repetitive and notable because I could only eat at the same places and eat the same things available to me. And they're fun games for me. They'd remember my odd and repetitive orders at the few places I could eat at. They'd see me and try and guess my order before ordering. That was humiliating. Additionally, this game of theirs would occasionally result in them writing down my order incorrectly and including an unsafe food in it. I was delivered that meal, and my family and friends would literally move it away because they knew I couldn't eat it or handle that situation. Even then, I often didn't have it in me to say anything to a server and complain. I just didn't eat it and lied whenever the server asked in those situations, lying that I wasn't hungry. I was, but I was feeling anxious, ill, distraught, stressed, alone, and judged. Servers would laugh about my odd orders and tendencies, judging me and not knowing I had ARFID and wanting to cry every single time. They laughed or judged me, as I wanted to cry or simply trying not to get physically ill. Cafeterias are worse. Everyone judges you. Cafeteria workers have isolated me from my peers and made me cry because I could not eat like my peers. I remember being 5 and enduring the horrors of sitting in a cafeteria, being judged by my peers, and then being judged and punished cafeteria workers who would not let me play on the playground with the other kids until I ate something that I never could. I want to interject here. I remember a time, I think I was in second grade, we had french fries, and one of them on my plate was like, it looked wrong, it looked gross, so I picked it up off my plate and set it on the side. And we had little, like, clothespins to whether or not we were a good or bad kid. And if they took it off, you would get in trouble. So I got in trouble for not wanting a singular french fry. And also, earlier, I have never had someone tell me no, but I have been charged double for eating off the kids' menu because I'm an adult. And then that server also ended up feeling bad because I barely ate any of it and then gave me a bunch of bread to go home with. Back to this story. I'd watched them through the floor-to-ceiling cafeteria windows. I've been bullied in high school because visible anxiety about food makes for a vulnerable and easy target for unhappy people, kids and faculty alike. I've been shamed by teachers and deemed odd by peers for my struggles with ARFID. Cafeterias are overwhelming and horrible for all of my ARFID triggers. I tried for years not to have lunch and eventually had to have legal school accommodations forced to make it so. That was humiliating. Nobody cared when I struggled as I was stuck in the lunchroom, though. Adults and children band together to make it worse. There was a lack of care, unwillingness to understand, and judgment that contributed, all because I have ARFID that I do not and have never wanted. Servers and cafeteria workers should be trained on what ARFID is and how to handle those who say they have it. Nothing more. They should not ask questions or single people with ARFID out. They should not simply automatically make accommodations for those who say that they have this disorder. Nothing more. They should know what to do and do it when someone just says that they have ARFID, even if they don't understand it. Respect it personally, judge about it, feel different about it, or find it funny or odd. I don't know if the world will ever change to accommodate those with ARFID. I do know, however, that it would be better for physical health, mental health, social growth, personal growth, self-advocacy growth, and self-esteem of those who are tormented by ARFID. If they could handle the horrors of going into a restaurant without having to worry that their struggles will be pointed out and validated and or mocked by restaurant employees, school faculty, cafeteria workers, peers, and fellow restaurant diners, it's crucial that change be made and made now. No human should feel unsafe eating in public and carrying the damage from that throughout their lifetime. Again, that response is very, very well put and informational. No matter how long it was, I had to share it. I had to do justice for them. The last portion was just a little statistics. I asked for the age demographic of those who still ate off the kids' menu. The majority of us were aged 21 to 29, with ages 30 to 39 and 18 to 20 tied in second. Next were 13 to 17 years old, and then I got 2 responses also from people, someone 50 to 64 and someone 65 plus. ARFID and eating out is a struggle. It is a real struggle that shouldn't be taken lightly. We should be able to go to restaurants without fear, be able to order without fear, and be able to eat out like everyone else, but that is not the case because of severe undereducation of ARFID. I hope this video taught you something because that is the entire goal of this YouTube channel. To everyone listening with ARFID, I love you, and you are not alone, and we will get through this together.